Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums today with another Show Me How You Practice video. Today I'm going to talk about astrology. As you may have noticed, it is a part of like my actual business name and things like that. It is something that I consider to be, I always call it like my gateway drug into everything else metaphysical and the occult or esoteric. So I always will have a deep and loving affection for the art and study of astrology. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I am like, this like master astrologer or anything like that. This is all self-taught, self-study. It's a practice that I'm constantly trying to learn more about, trying to become more comfortable with. And while I do offer and teach astrology classes, it's more about like the kind of basics, kind of trying to help people get a good foundation on how to understand the art of astrology. So astrology is one of these things that I think tends to either be something that you really love or something that is a little bit scary. And the thing with astrology and why I think it's a wonderful, addition to add to any kind of esoteric or metaphysical practice is not just the foundation of it, but also the crossover in so many other studies. If you're someone that has a lot of interest in different metaphysical or occult or magical knowledge, you're going to notice that there's always a little bit of a crossover between all of the different areas that you can kind of go into. There's crossover with tarot. There's crossover with like, celestial practices, with the, wheel of the year. Is that right? Year of the wheel. Wheel of the year, yeah. My brain, I'm a little tired. And then there's also, different things that you can kind of use the celestial elements and celestial movements to kind of help direct your magic. There's like, you can just talk about following the phases of the moon, using mundane astrology for like what may be happening at, with the world and the energies and things like that. And it's interesting because typically people that, have this crossover of interest in these things, even if they're like, I don't know anything about astrology, if there's someone who's like energetically sensitive, may also still pick up on that kind of energy going on in the, what's it called? In the universe. I was like, what is the word here? All right. So I didn't really know how I was going to do this video. I've been wanting to do it for some time and I wanted to film it, but I was kind of struggling because I was like, would it be better if I was just like talking at the camera? But then I'm also not 100% comfortable doing that yet. Maybe this year we'll get over this fear of being perceived online. And if you have followed me on any of my other social medias, I've dipped into trying to be camera facing here and there. It's just not my favorite. So it's a little hard to kind of talk about astrology without like physically kind of just like talking to you. But I'm going to just kind of talk about different things that I think are really fun that you can kind of keep in mind when maybe diving into astrology. There's a lot of books out there that are amazing. I didn't want to bring them all out, like the ones that I really love and recommend for people, just because it's like, it's very bulky. And then I was like, how am I going to like do all of that with my table and things like that? So the biggest thing with astrology is that most people either have a very plain way of what they believe astrology is. And if you're not someone that has ever like really dove into it or have had a curiosity about it, you may think, oh, horoscopes, zodiac signs, none of it ever makes sense. None of it ever really, resonates with me. Or, oh, I would read my horoscope and it really wouldn't make sense, or it never really like would happen. And the thing with horoscope astrology is that it is really truly based on you being able to read your horoscope based off of your rising sign. So as you may, and I don't have a chart here, which is kind of the thing where I was like, oh man, I don't have like an actual chart here to show you, like a birth chart. But I have some notes that I use for when I'm teaching classes. So if we were to look at a chart, it usually looks like this. You'll see a lot of glyphs, a lot of these like symbols and things like that that can feel a little bit confusing, especially if you're not familiar with what a chart looks like. And then you'll see lines on some charts. You'll see a lot of different things on there that can feel very like overwhelming to look at, because you're kind of like, what is going on? Why are all these lines, these dashes, these, aspects, and, all these little different symbols all over this like circle. And the thing with it is that we have all signs and all planets in our charts. Now, they're all going to be very individualized and specific to whatever we had going on the moment that we were born. And so it's extremely important to have an understanding of what your chart looks like. And the way you can do that is there's a lot of free services online that will provide a birth chart, natal chart, or astrological chart, whatever you want to call it. All of those words are interchangeable when we're talking about charts. And, having that and having access to it and being able to see it is very beneficial. Maybe I should have brought my iPad over here so I can show you guys like my chart and what it looks like so that you can become a little bit familiar. I may see if I can like put in a picture of a chart on here. I don't really know how to do all that stuff, but I'm learning. I'm an elder millennial, I guess is what they call us now. So I'm learning how to do all this like stuff on here. Okay. So with the chart, that is going to be almost like a key to understanding yourself, to diving a little bit deeper into your own kind of lore, if you want to look at it that way, or just having a better understanding as to, how you are, how you might be, some of the potential, some of the energies that maybe are co-creating your experience. But even still, and that's why I think a lot of people kind of latch on to personal astrology, which is, the kind of astrology where someone's like, I am, a Libra sun with a Pisces rising and a Leo moon or whatever. That is what we consider like personal placements in astrology. And I'm going to kind of talk about like what that all means if you're like, I don't know what any of those words mean. So when we talk about astrology, it is an ancient practice. It is something that, for as long as people, I feel, have existed, we've always looked up to the skies. And eventually astronomy and astrology, so astronomy, the study of the celestial placements, and astrology, the so-called pseudoscience of their effect on us as individuals, kind of diverged and became two different things. And so a lot of people look at astrology as not something that was utilized by the ancients as a means of either understanding their world, understanding themselves, and really utilizing it to kind of do so many different things that were a very big part of just their everyday life. And there's even been historic references to certain, monarchs using astrology on, to kind of like do different like political campaigns or war campaigns and things like that. So it is a tool, if you know how to use it, to be able to, either empower yourself in different ways, or to, just have a deeper understanding of basically the human condition. That's kind of how I like to look at it. So when we talk about the signs, I think that's a good place to start, is the signs. This is going to be, where we're talking about Aries. This is the symbol or a glyph of what Aries looks like. We have the keywords I am. Their qualities are going to be like seen as the initiator. Sorry, my dog always wants to get up when I start doing these videos. The warrior. When we talk about the second sign, is Taurus. It has a little bull where it looks like it's got little horns too. We have I have as the keywords. This is going to be slow and steady, kind of practical, seen as like very stubborn. Gemini is the third sign, and it's going to be the twins. So we have the two lines, and then their keywords are going to be I think. They are the communicators. They're here for like technology and, speedy kind of energy that's very intellectual. The fourth sign is Cancer, and it's going to be the two, the little crab. So it's going to look like a 69 almost. And so here we have I feel. So this is the healer. This is going to be more emotional, more nurturing kind of energy. Then we have the fifth sign, which is Leo. That's a little like, looks like I always want to say like Ariana Grande with her ponytail. So, and then their keywords are going to be I will. So this is the center of attention, more dramatic, more of like that warmth, that joy. The sixth sign is Virgo, where it looks like an M with a little like swirl. And then we have I analyze as their keywords, and it's going to be perfectionist. They're going to be more of like the healer in some ways, in the sense of like the physical healing, if that makes sense. Serving, more analytical because they are still Mercury ruled, and I'll talk about rulerships in a minute. With the seventh sign, we have Libra, the balancer, basically. So we have like the scales. So it's going to be I balance or we balance, and they're going to be the peacemaker, artistic, kind of focusing on relationships. Then we have the eighth sign, which is Scorpio, which looks like the M with a little arrow. And this is I desire is their keyword. And here, the investigator, there's a sexual energy that comes with it, more mysterious. The ninth sign is going to be Sagittarius, and this is going to be, again, another little arrow. And their keywords are going to be I seek, I see. So they're going to be like the professional students, endless optimism, the freedom seekers. They're going to be very much about not really living life according to other people's rules. The 10th sign is Capricorn. It's going to look like a little N with a swirl. And here we have I use. And this is going to be the more ambitious leaders, more conservative sort of energies and qualities within ourselves. The 11th sign is Aquarius, and it's going to be the two squiggles that look like little waves. And their keywords are I know. They're going to be the revolutionaries, the eccentrics, the kind of humanitarian sort of energy. And finally, the last sign is going to be Pisces. And here we have where it's like the two fish. And they are going to be all about dreaming and believing. So they're more idealistic, kind of more mystical, more, spiritual, if that makes sense. So when we talk about those signs, so you can see the different glyphs, and you'll see them in a chart as well. And so having an understanding of each of the signs will help you kind of see where that energy needs to be applied or how that energy can be expressed. Another thing that is important to understand and to note is going to be modalities and also the elements. So here I have a little chart that kind of shows you the different modalities and also the elements. So the modalities are going to be the words cardinal, fixed, or mutable. So if you've ever listened to astrology talks or things like that, you'll probably hear these words and probably wonder what they mean. So the cardinal signs are going to be Aries, Capricorn, Libra, and Cancer. And there is going to be one of each of the elements. So cardinal fire is going to be Aries, cardinal earth is going to be Capricorn, cardinal air is going to be Libra, and cardinal water is going to be Cancer. And so here we have cardinal energy is going to be the one that kicks off the season. So they're going to be the initiators, the starters, the ones that kind of like jump in and do what's necessary. So we think of when the seasons change, it is when the sun moves into all of these signs. Now, next to that, we have fixed, which is going to be more about sustaining, stabilizing, kind of being a little bit more, like, again, a fixed energy of steady. So the first fixed fire sign is going to be Leo. The fixed earth is going to be Taurus. Fixed air is going to be Aquarius, and fixed water is going to be Scorpio. So these are going to be seen as more stubborn. They're going to be seen as more steady, more like, again, fixed. Because they come after the cardinal sign. So they're going to be more of like the energy that's a little bit more established. And finally, we have mutable, which is going to be the ones that are kind of ending things, changing things, going to be more about like kind of seeing what's out there, more investigative kind of energy, more curious. And for mutable fire, we have Sagittarius. For mutable earth, we have Virgo. For mutable air, we have Gemini. And for mutable water, we have Pisces. So that's all 12 signs, kind of in a little grid to show you how they also shake out with these other energies. So if we look at all of the water signs, we have Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. For all of the air signs, we have Libra, Aquarius, Gemini. For all of the earth signs, we have Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. And then we also have all of the fire signs with Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So this kind of allows you to have an understanding of what the base energy can be for these signs, or where this energy can be best applied in our charts and in our lives. Another thing is kind of having an understanding of the planets. I think that's the thing that tends to kind of trip up a lot of people. When we think of the sun, it's like a self-radiating outward kind of energy. So wherever we have our sun, that's where we may kind of express ourselves in different ways. So someone that has their sun in Libra may come off a little bit more of like that, you know, kind of communicative, like balance, artistic kind of energy, versus someone that has their sun in, let's say, Pisces, where they may be a little bit more mystical, or, you know, kind of come off as more spiritual, and things of that nature. The moon is going to be our inward sense of self. It's going to talk about our emotions. I almost like to look at this as like the mother in our chart. So it's how we mother ourselves. It's how we nurture ourselves. It's how we kind of deal and nurture with others as well. Mercury is going to be communication, travel, thought. And so I'm sure you've heard of Mercury being in retrograde. And then we talk about, you know, oh, double check what you're sending out, you know, make sure like you're communicating. You may hear from people you haven't heard from in a while. That's Mercury's kind of wheelhouse. Venus is going to be our relationships, our love, our like what we value, our sense of beauty, things of that nature. So that's why, you know, they say like women are ruled by Venus, because it is like the feminine symbol of for female energy, if that makes sense, and feminine energy. Mars is going to be our will, our like drive, our initiative, our ambition. It's going to be this energy of like getting out there and doing things. And so Mars is, you know, kind of what they say rules over men. So it's going to be aggression and things of that nature. So it does kind of rule over like our determination and our sense of like what's driving us, what we're passionate about. And then we also have like, these are going to be kind of seen as like the personal planets, right? Those first like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then also in consideration with the mathematical point of our rising sign. So that is also another thing that is kind of seen as a personal planet. Now for the social planets, this is going to be where we can look at more mundane astrology or world astrology and kind of looking at the generational planets. So these are planets that move a lot slower. And so they're going to have more of an impact on a generation. So first one is Jupiter. This is all about expansion, our opportunities. It can talk about leadership, our luck, our optimism. Saturn is going to be limits and structures and discipline. And I kind of like to look at Saturn as like the dad of the zodiac. So it's going to be like where it's a little bit more strict, a little bit more rigid, kind of looking at, you know, what needs to be established. And so a lot of people may have talked about their Saturn return, and how it maybe made them change so many different aspects of their lives. And then we also have Chiron, which is a small planetary body between Saturn and Uranus which is kind of seen as the wounded healer. So if you start diving a little bit more into astrology, you may be like, well, my Chiron is like the wound that I need to kind of overcome in some way. So someone that maybe has Chiron in the second house may have a wound surrounding money, possessions, what they value, things of that nature. When we talk about Uranus, this is going to be the cosmic consciousness, the revolutionary change. So you may have heard that Uranus has been kind of making some heavy transits. It's actually going to make a shift in its transit in July of this year, July 7th, actually. It's going to move from Taurus into Gemini. And so we may see some changes over like the innovations that we have surrounding some of the things that we have had going on, as well as like a kind of revolutionary way of kind of thinking about things and radicalizing certain things of that nature. Now, Neptune is going to be the planet of spiritual awakening, cosmic love, all like of that sort of energy and kind of moving into that. And Neptune is actually going to be moving into Aries after a 14-year transit, about 14 years, in the sign of Pisces. And so on March 30th, during Aries season, there's going to be a lot of things kind of moving from Pisces into Aries. So that's why this year feels a little bit more intense, I feel. It's because we're having all of these major transpersonal social planets kind of moving out of signs that they've been in for some time period. So how we believe, what we believe in, maybe changing and shifting. We may be more like, focused on what this means for ourselves and our identity, because if we think of Aries energy, it's I am versus like what I dream and believe with Neptune. And then finally, we have Pluto, which is death and rebirth, deep and total change. As you may have heard, Pluto moved into Aquarius I think it was like initially moving there in August. It's been a while since I've like looked back. This year has just been crazy. Well, not just this year, but like the last year was very like intense, a lot of different things. So it finally moved out of Capricorn for the first time since 2008. So a lot of us are kind of seeing the effects of Pluto really settling into the sign of Aquarius and, kind of moving into that revolutionary kind of energy and transforming what we believe as a whole, and so we're seeing a lot of these big things. So each of the signs is ruled by a planet. And so here I also have it on this little sheet. So here we have Aries, which is ruled by Mars. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Cancer is ruled by the moon. Leo is ruled by the sun. Virgo is ruled by Mercury as well. Libra is ruled by Venus too. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, but it used to also be ruled by Mars. So I always associate both of those planets together with Scorpio. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Aquarius used to also be ruled by Saturn. So I always do associate that energy of Saturn with Aquarius and also Uranus. I feel like it's very comfortable there. Pisces is ruled by Neptune, but it used to be ruled by Jupiter as well. So I feel like Jupiter in Pisces is also very comfortable in that energy. So that's just kind of a quick, thing as far as like what that looks like. And like I said, here we have a chart with the actual like sign rulers and house rulers. So because we start off with Aries, the first house is going to be this one. We always start at the AC line, which is your ascendant. So it's going to be here that Aries rules over the first house. And so we have that kind of energy. So Mars is comfortable in the first house. We also have the second house, which Taurus rules over. So Venus is comfortable there. We have the third house where Gemini rules over. So Mercury is comfortable in the third house. The fourth house is going to be ruled by Cancer or the moon. We have the sun ruling over the fifth house and Leo. And so the sixth house is going to be Virgo. So again, Mercury is also comfortable there. Next to that, we have Libra ruling over the 7th house, where Venus is also comfortable. And then next to that, we have Scorpio ruling over the 6th house, or sorry, 8th house. Oh my gosh, I was going the wrong way. The 8th house. And so this is also the house that is very comfortable with having Pluto or Mars there. The 9th house is ruled by Jupiter and also Sagittarius. The 10th house is the house of Capricorn. So here we have the midheaven, or MC, medium coli line. And I forgot to mention this other line. It's an Inum Coli. So it's like the lowest point of the chart. Here we have the highest point. Here we have Capricorn and Saturn very comfortable in the 10th house. For the 11th house, we have Aquarius and Uranus being very comfortable there, as well as Saturn. And then finally, we have Jupiter and also Neptune being very comfortable in the 12th house, which is the house of Pisces. So just very quick rundown of the houses. I don't want to like get into it too crazy because I know it can be a little bit confusing. I'm not going to talk about aspects and things like that, but the astrological chart angles are very important to kind of have an understanding of, just because it kind of helps divide up the chart in different ways and it helps you understand things. Now, I also wanted to talk about the houses. So I have like my little handy dandy notes that I made several years ago, because I just like to have things kind of written down and kind of like what I've learned and what feels good for me. So just having like those lines and things like that kind of written down for myself, as well as like some quick notes, really helps me. And I'm sure you've seen this if you've watched any of my other Show Me How You Practice videos. And so I kind of have like my own notes that have, been something that I like to utilize. Now, when we talk about the chart, we talk about the houses, right? So just like I was showing you what rules over what, having an understanding of the houses is also really beneficial, because the first house is going to be the first impression, our appearance, our body, our attitude, our approach to life. I like to look at the first house as like how we perceive the world versus like how the world really perceives us, because I think a lot of people look at the rising sign as a means of how other people may view you. And I like to look at it as a little bit backwards, maybe just kind of like how we are going to look at the world. The second house is going to be the house of money, security, self-worth, values, possession, and work ethic. So this is why I was talking about, like, if you have Chiron, which is the wounded healer, so there's a wound here that needs to be healed through the second house over money, security, and self-worth. That may be something that you kind of feel like you're going and chasing after in your life. The third house is going to be communication, siblings, cousins. I like to look at it as like our childhood, as far as like elementary, and those connections. So I like to kind of look at this house, not just for communication, but also like how you may have possibly have grown up, maybe some things going on in your life. The fourth house is going to be our home, traditions, our family, our inner emotions, how we're nurtured, self-care, things of that. I think it also can really tell you how a person lives their life. So for me personally, I have a Scorpio fourth house. I don't like people at my house. And it sounds really funny, but I realize like a lot of other people that have Scorpio as their fourth house ruler are also very similar. And I think I married someone that also has a very close, like either Sagittarius fourth house. So it's very similar kind of energy where we're like, no, we don't want people at our house. So the fifth house is going to be romance, dating. It's going to be the house of like gambling and kind of like creating children, self-expression, joy. It's kind of like that sort of energy. So if you are someone that maybe has like a lot going on in your home life, or has had like a whirlwind kind of life, I like to look at what's going on in the fifth house, because I think it can kind of really inform as to like what that person will typically do. The sixth house is going to be the house of our daily routines, health, our work habits, our service, organization, things of that nature. Our seventh house is going to be relationships, marriage, business partnerships. It's also the house of like the hidden enemy, I think, is kind of how you can perceive it too. So if you have a lot of stuff going on in the seventh house and kind of have struggled with with relationships and connections, I like to look at what's going on there because that may also inform like what it is that your soul's trying to learn this lifetime. The 8th house is going to be intimacy, sex, shared finances, loans, inheritances. I kind of call it like the death and taxes house and other people's money house. So there's a lot of depth and mystery that goes on in this house as well. The 9th house is going to be the big picture, beliefs, religion, law, cultures, higher education, traveling, writing. If someone is like a perpetual student, I'm like, what's going on in your 9th house? Let's see. The 10th house is going to be career, status, long-term goals, public image, reputation, our bosses, things like that. As someone that has a 10th house stellium, I can say it's not that fun. It's kind of hard. Our 11th house is networks, internet, friend groups, humanitarianism. I can't even say words today. Hopes, wishes, and future. And so there is a lot of this kind of energy of like what's going on with like your higher ideals, kind of like those hopes and wishes, like what's going on with like groups and social circles and things like that. The 12th house is going to be our subconscious, our karma, spirituality, afterlife, addictions, intuition. This is also the house of like hospitals and prisons and kind of feeling a little bit like that sense of undoing. And I feel like there's like this like solidarity that tends to come with the 12th house. So if there's a lot of that kind of energy going on with a person, I also like to kind of peep at what's going on in their 12th house or if they have transits in the 12th house. So this is not going to be a comprehensive video. This is just like a quick, kind of explaining a little bit of astrology. Using an astrology diary can be really beneficial too, because it can kind of help you understand what the energy is with the planets going on around you. And if you have a good understanding of your natal chart, it can also help you see why you may feel a little bit more affected by certain energies. So like for me, in my chart, I struggle during certain time periods of the year. And I've noticed that it's just because when a lot of planets are in either my 8th or 9th house, it kind of makes it a little bit uncomfortable for me because those are heavier hitting energies and I don't really have anything in those houses. So it just feels very like free for all, kind of just like balls to the wall with the energy at times. But having an understanding of like where the moon is or, what the planets are doing at certain times. This is a really great one that I got from Rockpool last year. I didn't write in it, but I did use it to kind of have an understanding of what was going on with the energies, just so I could be like, oh, okay, like I have a Cancer moon. So for me, when the moon is back in Cancer, I feel a little bit more like I got this. I'm chill with it. I'm good. Even though this last full moon in Cancer, I feel like it really kicked my ass. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. Here's another one. This one's from Hay House by Yasmin Boland. This is just a moonology. One that she put together, and it obviously I didn't write in it either. I didn't really use it. It's like I'll start using them and then I'm like, I have too many other things I'm like writing in all of the time because I was kind of like writing in this one and then I was like, okay, I got a little too crazy for me. But and 2020 was a wild year, right? I think we can all agree that it was crazy. So this can just kind of show you like what's going on with the actual moon placements. And if you understand the glyphs, you can kind of see what's happening because we have the moon phase glyph and then we have the actual sign glyph. So I think I'm going to end this video on that. If you want to hear more about astrology or if you want me to kind of talk a little bit more about different things regarding astrology, let me know. Again, it's not going to be comprehensive. If you guys are looking for more astrology education and things like that, there's much better and well-versed people out there teaching it, but you can also purchase my little guidebook on Astro Basics, and something that I poured a lot of myself into, a lot of love in trying to understand and talk about some of like those basic energies. But I want to say thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. As always, please take care, stay safe, and make good choices. Bye.